James sat at the old diner, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had gone cold. The place hadn't changed in 20 years. Same checkered floor, same hum of the neon sign outside. Even the waitress, Carol, still worked in the morning shift, though her hair was grayer now. "You waiting on someone?" she asked, topping off his cup. He hesitated. "Yeah, maybe." Carol gave him a knowing smile and walked off. She'd seen this before. The ghosts people bring with them. James glanced at the door every time the little bell jingled. He knew she wasn't coming, but hope is a stubborn thing. Emily used to love this diner, the way the booths creaked and the coffee tasted like burnt nostalgia. She promised she'd meet him here, one last time, before she left for good. That was 20 years ago. James took a slow sip of his coffee. It was bitter. It was real. He left a 20 on the table and walked out without looking back. Some promises aren't meant to be kept. Now, do you believe that was written by a human or an AI? Because 80% of my participants believe that was written by a human. That, what I just read, was AI. Now, if you believe that was AI, then you might be part of the larger demographic that is susceptible to AI. AI is what I did my science fair on this year. Hi, I'm Jonathan Calme, freshman at Decolores Montessori. Now, this year, again, as I said, I did a science fair on artificial intelligence. I did this because there was a growing use of artificial intelligence with the media, and there's a lot of things that aren't made by people anymore. There's a lot of concerns like job displacement, whether or not human judgment will become a factor in, say, art, literature. And I decided to basically make a homemade Turing test and test which demographics were most susceptible to AI. Now, the Turing test was created in 1956 by Alan Turing, and it was basically used to determine whether or not people could tell whether they were talking to an AI or a machine. Now, what I did was originally I wanted to take 50 participants, but I only got 12 due to limitations. But I believed I was going to test people over 45, people under 45, and men and women to see who's more susceptible to AI. My question was, will humans be able to differentiate between human-generated and AI-generated work? And I believe that the average score will be 60%. And women will have a higher score. I thought this likely due to emotional intelligence or being more conversationally aware. And I thought the older generations will also get a better score, likely due to experience with technology or more conversational experience, other such things. Now, I gathered 16 questions, 8 from artificial intelligences. I used ChatGPT 4.0, Gemini, and Meta to get 8 questions. And I used the internet to source 8 more. And I sorted these into 4 categories. Art, which were AI images, normal images. Conversational, informational, poetry. Now, one of what I read to you at the beginning was actually one of my pieces. That was, as I said, 80% of people thought that was made by a human. That was on my survey. So I tested all my participants. I sorted it into 3 categories, and I put it all into a data table right here to see if, do they pass the Turing test? Now, I had problems with the experiment because I had a lot of variables. Some variables included whether they were female, male, female, whether they were over 45, under 45. I decided to do a broad, overall variables, which were, my control was that the test remained the same every time. My dependent variable was the opinion of the participants, whether they believed it was real or not, or made by human or AI. And my independent was the actual answers, whether or not it actually was. Now, when I averaged out all the scores, as you can see here, here's my chart and here's my data table. All the green you can see here is when they got an answer correct. All the red is when they got an answer incorrect. You can see the scores, ages, and genders. And over here, you can see the scores on the y-axis. On the x-axis, you have ages of participants and their scores. And females are pink, males are blue. My lowest score was I got by a 76-year-old woman, and that was a 5 out of 16. My highest score was done by a 39-year-old woman and a 64-year-old man. That was a 12 out of 16. Now, my average score was 53%. Average male score 54, average female score 53%. Average score of people over 45 was 52. Average score of under 45, 51. Now, the results were so close together that at first I struggled trying to determine whether or not I could make a broad generalization because, again, I only had 12 participants. I read a study done in 2023 on 500 participants. They did a Turing test. They weren't testing for demographics like I was. They were just testing to see if people could determine whether they were talking to an AI. And the average score there was 54%. My average score was 53. They were so close. There was such a small margin between 12 participants and 500 that my data being inconclusive was almost conclusive enough to say that 53, 54 was around the ballpark of where you landed when you tried this out. Again, I don't have the test for which they did. It could be harder than mine, it could be easier. But 53, 54%, that's eerily similar for 12 to 500 participants. Again, the 12 participants is a limitation I had because I tried to get more, again, just some problems. I also had limitations with whether people were, and again, you could test for this, but whether or not they had experience with artificial intelligence. I went into this with a few scientific biases. Like whenever a teacher did it, they usually had a higher score. This might be due to the fact that, again, they have more experience with AI. Maybe some of their students use AI, they know what AI looks like. Another scientific bias I had was intelligence. I thought that originally the people I thought who were smarter did better. So people I believed to have higher intelligences got better scores. Again, it's a bias. You can't say whether or not that's true. But again, 54%. Is my data inconclusive? With 12 people, I would say yes, it's inconclusive. However, if you follow the rule of large numbers, I believe you're going to land, again, in the same 53 to 54%. Even if you increase your numbers, I believe that my data will stay the same. Some future possibilities I had for this was that you could do this on a larger scale, like behavioral test, to see whether or not whether or not demographics are more susceptible. What I believe they could have done with the 500 participants was tell how old they were, what gender, and they could have you could separate it even further, diversify it. But again, this could be a smaller piece on a much larger scale to figuring out who's more susceptible. Maybe we need disclaimers on things that are more advertisement that's more targeted to, say, older people, older females. Maybe they're more susceptible. Maybe it's younger boys. But either way, I believe we're ill fit to determine whether or not we're talking to a human or an AI. Thank you for watching.